Good morning, students. I welcome you all to our lecture of Business Economics Semester 5th. In today's lecture, I will explain the topic in Module 2nd, which is known as National Agricultural Policy 2000. Based on the experience of the agricultural sector in the post-independence period, the Government of India realized the need to revamp the agricultural sector to meet the challenges at home as well as in the changing global scenario in the 21st century. Agriculture is the base for the development of other sectors. Its importance lies in the fact that it provides the most essential consumption goods for the people. It is, however, discouraging to note that since independence, agricultural growth on an average was less than 4%. In certain years, the growth rate was even negative. The government plays an important role in removing or reducing the constraints faced by the agriculturist, with the objectives of establishing an appropriate and conducive environment to achieve a higher growth rate. The Government of India announced a national agricultural policy on 28 July 2000. All these are the objectives of National Agricultural Policy 2000. First one is the to achieve a growth rate of more than 4% per annum in agriculture. Next is to introduce the required structural changes. Next, to bring in necessary reforms. Next one is to make efficient use of resources. Then to sustain higher growth rate with necessary supporting services, technological, environmental, and economic. Then to make agriculture more market oriented. And last objective is to achieve equity. So the above objectives would be achieved with the help of measures like agricultural research, human resource development, then post-harvest management and marketing. So all these are the objectives of National Agricultural Policy 2000. Next, we will discuss the main features of National Agricultural Policy 2000. First feature is private participation. Private enterprises would be encouraged through contract farming, land leasing arrangements, technology transfer, then capital inflow, and assured markets for crop production, especially of oilseeds, cotton, and horticulture crops. The areas of private investment and participation have become wider. Big business firms, including multinationals, have entered agriculture and other related activities. And private sector is expected to promote research by investing more to benefit farmers through the better seeds and technology. Second feature is competitive approach. Under the World Trade Organization, agriculture everywhere has become more liberalized with less quantitative restrictions. There is more international competition in this sector. Accordingly, the focus of the government's new policy is on the efficient use of resources and technology, adequate availability of credit to farmers, and their protection from seasonal price fluctuations. Keeping in mind the progressive dismantling of quantitative restrictions on imports as per the WTO guidelines, the new policy has recommended formulation of commodity-wise strategies. Next one is the efficiency in agriculture. In the change world economic scenario, it is inevitable for farmers to depend less on government support through subsidies and other concessions, but more on efficiency, cost reduction, and competitive spirit, thus treating the age-old agricultural activities more like a business rather than way of life. Fourth feature is tax reforms. Changes in tax structure or level would be introduced by reviewing the excise duty on materials such as farm machinery and implements, fertilizers, or any other input and activities. The structure of tax on food grains and commercial crops would also be reviewed. Tax concession would be better than unwarranted subsidies. Widespread subsidies as existing now not only impose heavy financial burden on the taxpayer, but also encourage and develop a dependency psychology among the farmers. Next one is the internal trade. Internal movements and trade in agricultural commodities will be liberalized by progressively reducing the existing restrictions in whichever manner they may be, including tax. This will encourage the market to play its role in the determination of agricultural prices. Sixth feature is plant varieties and seeds. Protection through legislation would be provided to encourage research and breeding new varieties. Government would require to enact appropriate legislation for this purpose. It is necessary to protect poor farmers from exploitation by the multinationals through their patent rights. The other areas that require encouragement for development are animal husbandry, poultry, dairy, and agriculture. Seventh one is the infrastructure facilities. Rural electrification, new and renewable resources of energy for irrigation, rural and farm credit are some of the areas of infrastructure where the government will actively involve in providing these services. Energy is the most important input for the progress of any economic activity. Electricity is one of the important forms of energy required for the modernization of agriculture. Next one is the finance. Credit, as we know, is the most important requirement for agricultural progress. The government has promoted a variety of financial institutions to provide credit on easy terms to the farmers. A good number of farmers, especially the small and marginal ones, are yet to be brought within the reach of institutional finance. Next one is the insurance scheme. Insurance policy scheme to be introduced to cover the activities right from sowing of seeds to post-harvest operations, including market fluctuations in the prices of agricultural produce. Crops insurance provides the hedge against the risk which farmers face due to the crop failure owing to natural calamities or pest. Next one is the transform the Indian agriculture. The agricultural policy attempts to transform the agricultural sector from less productive into a modern, dynamic, and more productive one. A 4% growth has been targeted in order to have enough supply of agricultural commodities. It is necessary to support the agricultural sector with all the required changes in technology, input supply, tax reforms, then structural and institutional changes. Next point is rural development. The general changes in the agricultural sector and in the related activities will help to promote rural development. Development of tiny cottage and small scale industries in the rural side would reduce the seasonal and disguise unemployment. If the new policy succeeds in all the aspects mentioned above, the agricultural sector will be more attractive even for the educated youth for settling down and accepting agriculture as a career. So all these are the main features of National Agricultural Policy 2000. Moving next, these points are related with the implications of New Agricultural Policy 2000. The Policy 2000 implies that the agricultural sector requires to undergo many changes. First one is increased productivity. Performance of agriculture below the target is due to the low productivity, which is much less than not only the developed countries, but even many of the developing countries. To promote, improve the productivity, agriculture requires to be supported by a sufficient amount of quantity of qualitative inputs besides other supporting services. Second one is the reduction in agricultural population. At present, about 50% of our population depends on agriculture, but contributing only about 15% of GDP. In most of the developing countries, about 2 to 5% of population is in agriculture, producing a surplus of agricultural output. We require to divert our agricultural population to non-agricultural activities by promoting rural development. Third one is the increase in investment. A huge amount of investment is required to provide infrastructure facilities to the agricultural sector. It includes irrigation, electricity, roads, markets, warehouses, and so on. Fourth one is the private investment. Incentives should be provided to promote private investment in the above mentioned sector. A public-private partnership could be promoted for this purpose. Next one is research and development. At present, our research and development programs have not succeeded in providing sufficiently good qualitative inputs such as seeds, fertilizer, tools, and inputs. More resources are required to be allotted to improve our research and development program. Next one is the extension program. Agricultural universities and research institutes should be made to train and educate farmers in effective methods of cultivation and better use of input resources. Next point is appropriate technology. It is not advisable to adopt imported technology from developed countries. Technology appropriate to our environment must be developed and used. Next point is area specific development strategy. In a vast country like India, with the difference in the quality of soil, weather, and environment, it is necessary to develop area specific strategy to promote agricultural growth. Next point is use of wasteland. India, according to estimates, has 79.5 million hectares of wasteland, which is required to be utilized for agriculture and afforestation. 10th point is service cooperatives. Small and marginal farmers are not in a position to purchase equipment, quality seeds, and other inputs. To provide these services, service cooperatives are required to be established. Marketing services too can be provided by these cooperatives. Unfortunately, cooperative movement has not been very successful in India. Next point is land reformers. Land to the tiller is the main objective of Indian land reforms. Yet the marginal farmers in many parts of the country, especially in parts of northern states, have not been successful in obtaining the ownership of the land they cultivate. They are helpless in establishing their rights. Suitable actions must be taken to effectively implement the land reforms. Next one is the change in attitude. Agriculture in India is treated as a way of the life and not a commercial venture. Such an attitude is undergoing a change, yet it is not strong enough to transform the agricultural sector. Last point is price policy. Government of India has a price policy under which it announces the yearly procurement policy. It, however, has not succeeded in providing sufficient income to the farmers. Many of the farmer suicides are attributed to the unremunerative prices, hence the low income. Farmers are demanding implementation of Swaminathan formula of agricultural policy. So all these are the implications of new agricultural policy 2000. So in next lecture, I will explain next topic. Till then, stay safe, stay home, and thank you.